Shank, big show tonight. Actually, we have a lot to talk about tonight. We had to postpone it one more night because of things and Elder Scrolls Online. It's kind of a lot I had to do with Elder Scrolls Online. But we're here. We're here today, one day late, but we have quite a lot to talk about. Of course, I'm not alone. I'm joined by my intrepid co-host and translator of sorts, Bradford Kinsat.
Yo, what's up?
What's that?
My daughter says, "Hey, Shank" in the chat, so this is going to be an interesting show.
Wait, what?
She's in my chat saying, "Hey,
Wow.
Shank."
Okay, quick Windows 10 update.
Da 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 da.
Your Twitter, along with posting the actual live stream, also tweeted out 37 seconds ago. So just prior to your live stream tweet, it says, quote, "Come hang out as we grind for Federation rank in Elite Dangerous." Now
That's
using some.
amazing. And that also means that there is something wrong with Restream social titles because I changed all of that prior to this.
Well, all right.
Like, okay, I have to pull this up now because that's hilarious.
It is.
And I really hope somebody pops in the chat wondering why we're not playing Elite Dangerous right now. Okay, so we've got a pretty interesting show tonight. Mainly we do mainly because this industry just can't stop getting in its own way. But first, just so you guys know, Brian is here, but he is having audio issues, as my daughter attested to earlier this week. Which I loved the fact that the minute I mentioned Brian has audio issues, my daughter was just ragging on him. To me, that is the most amazing thing that has happened this week.
That is incredible, yes.
Yeah. So, but he'll join us as soon as he gets his audio working, but his Japanese is not improving because he's learning from Shank, who then wrote in some Japanese. Which the kanji I can't read, but I could read the rest of it, which says, Rahata kusanimasu. Oh. We'll be announcing TundraCon's details tomorrow, guys. This is a quick public service announcement. Stay tuned. We're looking to get ZeniMax Online Studios as a special. You know what's funny is we could probably actually get them as a special guest.
We probably could.
I just email PR and make that happen. Quick reminder, you guys. Myself, Brian, Pete, and Shank are extremely excited to announce that the tryouts for the Tawdry Balls Esports League are now officially open. Noel just put in the chat, Tawdry Balls, where is Brian? Brian is here, Noel. He just has audio issues.
I don't see her. She's probably in your chat.
She's in my chat, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, the Tawdry Balls Esports League tryouts are officially open. DM any one of us, but not me, on Twitter for details. This is an actual reminder as well, guys. This one is an actual reminder. The Balls Does ESO is now a live stream. Myself, Brian, Shank, and Pete have revived our old live stream from the dark days. Like we have not had dealings with the dwarves since those days. Every Saturday at 11 p.m. Eastern or 8 p.m. in God's time zone. We'll stream to both Shank's Twitch and YouTube channel, as well as his Periscope and Mixer platforms. I will be streaming this to my Facebook page and probably a little bit other ones. Probably some other ones. I haven't figured it out yet because Facebook is being kind of stupid with his partner program. And Brian will stream to his Twitch, which is at Brian the Witcher. We don't have an agenda. We have no bullying. There are no bigots on our stream. This is a classic Elder Scrolls stream with the classic Tawdry Balls crew. Also remember, guys, with the Cytek X52 Flight Sticks, you can buy an ultra-wide G-Sync monitor because you're rich and live in Austin. You'll have so much control.
That's not what it says. That's not what it says, Bradford. It says rich and live in Vegas.
Well, considering I did not buy a G-Sync ultra-wide monitor.
Considering that's exactly what you just did today.
Considering you set one up today and are currently using it. Thus not having.
Look at the stream.
Shank,
it's a
do you have
9 ratio?
Yeah. Okay. Remember, guys. Quick Windows 10 update. I was about to read that same one again. Brian's supposed to make something up here, but he's not. He's not here. His audio isn't working. So we're going to talk about a Pete Hines interview with GamesIndustry.biz and why it and the subsequent article by Games Radar rubbed me the wrong way. My daughter is now in the room with me. No.
No. My thing won't catch up with your time.
It's because you have it paused. You just hit live. Oh, go on. So yeah, we're going to talk about why, and we're also going to talk about the Kotaku expose, yet another one, on yet more abuse in this disgusting industry of ours. This time within Treyarch and Call of Duty Black Ops 4. But sadly, there is a bigger issue. There's a larger issue here at play. So Shank, we've actually been playing quite a few games this week. Well, okay, let's rephrase that.
No.
I've been playing quite a few
Yes.
games this week. You have played a singular game. So why don't you
that's
talk?
not true.
Well, you only have one game written down there. Okay,
There we go.
There you go. Now you have played 2 games. Until you wrote that, your playtime in that other game didn't exist. So Shank, why don't you talk about Crash Team Racing, and then we'll both talk about ESO. Then I'll go into the other 2 games that I played.
Yeah, so I actually let me go ahead and pull this up because I actually had a review go live today. Oh, hey, it's a featured banner on Gamespace.com. So I reviewed Crash Team Racing for the Nintendo Switch, and I've been playing it for the last few days. This game is very fun. I have to say. I mean, first of all, if you want to go read the review, and I urge you guys go read the review, go to Gamespace.com. It's literally like the top banner that you're gonna see here, the featured item. If not, just scroll down the page in the reviews tab, or just search Crash Team Racing on the page, and it should come up. Additionally, I mean, you could just go scroll around my Twitter and find it that way. But basically, this is a remake. This is a full-on remake of Crash Team Racing from the 90s, like 1999, I think. I want to say 1999.
I think so.
But this is it's a full-on remake. This isn't like a remaster or anything. This is a ground-up remake, and I really like these Crash Bandicoot games that have been coming out the last couple of years. Really for one reason, and it's because these games look like I thought they looked when I played them. And I think that's a huge deal because sometimes you see remakes of games that they look nothing like what you thought they looked like. At least
Right.
for me. And some of the remakes I've played, they don't look like what I thought they looked like when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
This one, Crash Bandicoot specifically, really does nail it. It 100% nails that aesthetic because of its amazing use of colors, the lighting, the music, the complete pandemonium that's going on track. Basically, if you haven't played CTR, you're probably not a millennial, but you really should play CTR because it is a more technical racer than Mario Kart. I think that's a very fair statement to say because there's a lot more that you have to think about in terms of your drifting mechanics, in terms of your braking. Yes, you actually have to brake in this game. And it's not like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is a fantastic game that's on the Switch. It's not like that where it kind of you can literally just make it be bumper cars if you want and just have you basically guide you around the track. CTR is not like that at all. It expects more from the player. So it was really fun going back and playing this and learning the mechanics or relearning them again and remembering the drifting mechanics and everything from when I was a kid. And honestly, seeing some of these tracks remade to their idealized versions of themselves, I mean, they were just amazing. They were stunning. Even on the Switch, where I don't have a final pixel count, but I came up with a couple of different numbers. But so I just generically said it's sub 1080p and sub 720p in handheld. That's what it looked like to me. And that's what I'm going to go for. We're going to have to wait for the actual Digital Foundry report on that one.
Which I wouldn't be surprised if it comes relatively soon.
Yeah, and I mean, on my 4K TV, playing in docked mode, the pixel deficit, you could really, really tell that it was not anywhere close to a multiple of 4K. But the lighting and everything, it was really good. It's a 30 FPS Carter, and it's 30 FPS on every single console, just like the actual Crash Bandicoot remakes. They were 30 FPS. This is something that I found that was a little bit frustrating because I think karting games really need to be 60 FPS. I mean, they're karting games. They need to be 60 FPS. So it was as snappy and responsive as it could be, but it needs to be 60 FPS in my opinion. There are no microtransactions, so that's good. If you're thinking that they were gonna pack this with microtransactions, there is no microtransactions in this game.
That's not an outlandish thought when you consider that Activision threw microtransactions in Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare's remake. So
Exactly. Yeah, and yeah, that's the thing. We got to remember this is published by Activision, but there are no microtransactions. I hate the fact that that's even newsworthy today, but that's the state of the industry in 2019. Like that's getting an actual product for your money is a newsworthy topic. So that's kind of sad.
yep.
No microtransactions. Everything is earned in game. You'll see a like a basically they call it a pit stop, but it looks like a microtransaction shop. Again, it's not a microtransaction shop. You can only buy things there with the coins that you earn in game. If you're looking to pick it up, it does have local split screen, and this was phenomenal. It worked great. I had my buddy Matt come over and we played split screen on my TV, and it was just super fun and tons of nostalgia there. Overall, it's a really fun game, but I had a few gripes with it, like the loading screens, just way too long, and I genuinely don't think that can be addressed. The Nintendo's online infrastructure is garbage, and they do not make your life easy. Just to try to, I was trying to play with Allison, and it was just so annoying and frustrating, literally just to get into a party and play. I mean, that was legitimately annoying, and you actually earn more coins online than you do in single player, which I find kind of annoying. But the worst part is that if you play offline, like say you're on a plane ride or you're in a long road trip and you have no access to the internet, so all you can play is a single player, you earn 0 coins, and I find that needlessly punitive. I don't know why they did that. It seems bizarre and just completely unnecessary in my opinion. So apart from those, I would have said this is a masterpiece, but I think it's just not quite, it's not quite a masterpiece, but I still think it's a really, really, really fun game. And for millennials and other kids that grew up in the 90s, I mean, like, I think it's worth playing this game. It's worth buying this game and playing it. I think it's $40 at the time of writing. You can check out my full review, gamespace.com. It's a great game. Definitely go play it. We played another game though, Bradford. Okay, Bradford's dead.
I'm not dead. I was just waiting for you to introduce the game.
Yeah, we've been playing another game pretty religiously. Actually, it's not even, that's not even true. Like we've been playing it really for like the past month, and we only really started doing something about it the last week.
To be fair, no, that's not 100% true, because I did something about it in the last month by, playing a game, writing about it, recording a ton of video, and releasing a review on IGN about it.
Right, that doesn't count.
We only just recently did something together. But to say that I didn't do anything with the game other than just simply play it the last month is not true. We've been playing Elder Scrolls Online together. Yeah, so Shank got into it again after my Elsewhere review. And you've been kind of playing it like a madman. You get into these moods. I've just noticed this by being your friend for ages. You get into these moods where you get into a game and that's literally all you do for ages. Yeah. I can't do that personally. I don't understand that mindset. This is why, while I have beaten The Witcher, I haven't played as much of The Witcher as I could have.
But you don't need to, because you beat it.
I found Ciri. I beat The Witcher. We're all good. But you've been kind of like going crazy playing this game and soaking up as much as you can. You did Elsewhere's story. About the same amount of time it took me to do the story when you really sit down and think about it. You're working on Somerset now.
Yep.
Whereas I am just trying to power level my Necromancer, because I've done all these quests already, like twice. On a Warden, on my Morrowind review, I did that on a Warden and on my Templar. Somerset I did on a Templar and the Warden as well. So my Necromancer is the class I'm pretty much going to just get to level 50 first. Surprisingly, I've reviewed this game for IGN for 3 years, and I don't have a max level character. And that's, I think, one of the nice things about ESO. But it doesn't help when it comes time to, if I have to push through content, being under leveled. Because even though there is no like leveling, there's still the scaling going on. You still, having the extra skill points, having the extra stats goes a long way in just blasting through these things. So I'm going to get my Necromancer to level 50. Then I'm going to probably get my Templar to level 50 because it's the second closest. But I'm having a lot of fun playing the Necromancer. I think, though, on Saturday night when we streamed this, we had probably more fun than we should have, considering what we did. So ESO has raids, but in ESO they're not called raids; they're trials. And trials are typically 12-man, 50, level 50, champion point 160 level minimum. That doesn't mean you can't go in and try them at any level, because again, the game does scale. So you can go into like Craglorn, for instance, and go to the trial and not feel as though you're under leveled until you get to the trial. We were not only under leveled seriously, like just completely gimped. Our only champion level character was also high off of his rocker, just completely balls to the wall, cheesing all over the place. I think Brian was level 8, which is not conducive to doing a 12-man raid, which we were 5 people short for.
Yep.
Because we only had 7 dudes. 6 when you count the fact that Leif was again cheesing his balls. I think it took us 45 minutes to get rid of the trash mobs, only to just get one shot at each of us by the boss.
Yep.
But what a 45 minutes. They were hilarious. Especially when we realized that these were just trash.
Yeah. No, and see, that's the thing, because you guys, I mean, our crew, our guild, really, and if you, by the way, if you want to join, I believe there's a guild finder now in ESO, which is
Yeah,
really
it was
cool.
added with one of the more recent updates.
Cool. Yeah. So that if you search Tawdry Balls, obviously, we should show up. But our guild is a good mix of like serious like MMO veterans and just like total noobs. And it's nice because we can just goof off and have fun. Like, and that's honestly why I really wanted to. This was literally a spur of the moment. I'm not even joking. Like a week ago in our text thread, I kind of half jokingly texted Bradford and Brian and Pete, and I was like, guys, what if we just created a live stream now? And basically the overwhelming response was, yes, let's do it. So this kind of literally just appeared out of nowhere, but I think for good reason. We have a growing Discord server, and I think one of the cool things, sad how it came about, but it's still really cool now, a couple of years after the fact. But a lot of the people in our Discord server we have known in our past life, and we have been playing with them, and we've known them and hung out with them and talked to them and just generally played games together. And so now we're kind of rekindling that and rebuilding it, and one of the ways we're doing it is through Elder Scrolls Online. So on Saturday when we were playing, it was just it to me personally, it was bringing back a lot of just insane memories of playing this game before. And it was chaos, it was panic. There was absolutely no rhyme or reason for anything. Ralph is a goddamn Argonian. That pisses me off.
That's why I didn't say anything. Because he helped me with my Elsewhere review. So if you'd have paid attention to if you watched the video for the review, you would have seen him and his Argonian self all throughout it. Yeah, in fact, my favorite when you summon your skeleton mage, it randomly chooses a race in Tamriel to summon.
Yeah, and every time I get an Argonian, I resummon.
Dude, no, that's my favorite one. The way he runs, the fact that it's an Argonian, and he's still got his little tail,
So Inter in chat says, I thought about bringing my Argonian warden. I'm gonna kick you.
Okay, bye, Inter.
But yeah, no, I really do like this live stream because we've got we hung out with Maury for I haven't talked to him in forever.
That was yesterday.
Yeah. That was just yesterday. Him and Inter, we did the Alakir Dolmen run, which I had no idea. That was I mean, okay.
So
from your perspective, you're an outsider, right? So from your perspective, how hard was I panicking yesterday?
Oh, you were
how out of my element was I?
Complete panic. You had no clue what was going on. All you saw was 50 dudes just running at you when you got to the Way Shrine, and I was not stopping to help. I was just throwing you. You played WoW. You've done dungeons with pickup groups in WoW with me and Leif before. So I was just, whatever.
It's nothing compared to...
Basically, if you don't know what this is, the 3 Dark Anchors in the Alakir Desert are positioned in such a way that you can level up very quickly in a large group by simply rotating through the dolmens. So the way the rotation worked yesterday was basically counterclockwise. The minute one dolmen gets, destroyed, the next one starts to spawn. And so you can basically just port between way shrines and take out the dolmen. So there was like 2 or 3 dolmen groups running. There's probably about 50 people doing these dolmens yesterday. I think both of us within just an hour leveled up like 3 times.
Yeah, my frame rate went to literally 23 FPS.
Yeah, no, it's the pits. It's probably doing more things to your system than this engine was designed to do, even knowing full well how chaotic Cyrodiil can get. But Cyrodiil is spread across, the entire region. All the battles are spread across large areas. We're condensing like 70 people into like probably just this. It's just a super small circle. I can't really think of a real world analog that would work. Okay, let's basically say we're trying to fit like 70 people in a,
basically like a playground.
Yeah, I was gonna say a 2-seater restaurant, but any Japanese ramen restaurant fit about 70 people.
Owns a Japanese ramen restaurant, Bradford. God damn it!
I don't own one either. I've just been to
You're
multiple.
Rich.
So yeah, it was fun. It was fun. It's a really quick way to level. It's a great way if you're looking to level up your jewelry crafting, because this particular region drops a ton of jewelry.
Oh my god, I sold so much yesterday.
Yeah, it's also a good way to just grind for money. Within an hour I had an extra 60,000 gold in my purse. So it's a lot of fun. I'll probably be doing it again tonight or tomorrow. And I'm hoping to get to level 50 with that. Speaking of level 50 though, do you have anything else you want to add besides the fact that we have the stream this Saturday night?
Yeah, we have the stream this Saturday night, and so I spent some time yesterday actually making our guild tabard and heraldry and everything. So again, if you guys want to join, search for the Tawdry Balls Guild and join. We have more than enough members now actually for a guild bank and everything. So it's cool. It's just nice being able to play with everybody again after years and years. And basically, like I said, there's no agenda. There's no bullying. If you disagree with us, we're not gonna kick you out of our Discord.
Yeah, we really don't care.
So just don't be a dick and have fun. Really.
Speaking of not being a dick, my Judgment review went live. That's literally no segue. That has nothing to do with Judgment. I played Judgment for about 2 weeks.
Where is it live?
It's on GameSpace. Literally, if you go to the reviews tab, and then you go to PS4.
I'm literally searching for the recent. Okay, so it's not here. Okay,
it's probably on. I think it's on page 2. This released earlier in the week, the 21st.
Okay.
So last week actually.
Wait, you said Samurai Showdown?
Yeah, I'll get to that one. I've had a busy 2 weeks. So they gave me Judgment to review, mainly because I love the Yakuza series. I really, really love the Yakuza series. And this is basically Yakuza. If you're going into this expecting, anything drastically different than what the Ryugo Gotoku series studio has ever done, you're going to be sorely disappointed. But I will say that the story in Judgment is one of the best murder mysteries I've ever played. The issues that I had with Yakuza 6 and the Dragon Engine in terms of it not feeling responsive, the combat just feeling way too weighty, completely cleared up here. The main character, Yagami, he is, without a shadow of a doubt, probably one of the most fun characters I've had playing. Mainly because he's this diehard intellectual detective who used to be a lawyer. Basically, the setup is he was a lawyer who got an acquittal, which is extremely rare in Japan. 99% of trials that go before a judge end in a conviction. The criminal justice system in Japan is broken. Just completely broken, much like it is here in the States. So for him to get an acquittal, specifically a murder trial acquittal, was rather big news in Japan. So at the beginning of the game, he's being lauded as like this great lawyer who brought a lot of prestige to the firm because he was able to get an acquittal. Well, the person he acquitted ended up getting accused of murdering his girlfriend and burning down their apartment. Literally right afterwards, after he got out of prison. So he quits being a lawyer because he doesn't want to be responsible for something like that, and becomes a detective for hire. And it starts out with this big murder mystery that's taken over Kamurocho, which is the main city that you spend your time in Judgment. But it's also the same exact city that all the Yakuza games take place in. So if you played in a Yakuza game, you know Kamurocho. There's the buildings are the same, the venues are the same. A lot of the mini games are exactly where they are in Yakuza 6. It's a little bummer that I can't do karaoke, but that's neither here nor there. What I do love, though, is besides the really good story, is the combat is night and day better than it was in Yakuza 6. And Yakuza 6's combat was pretty good.
So I have a question.
Yeah.
How Japanese is it?
Incredibly. But one of the nice things, too, is if you don't want to deal with a Japanese voice track, this is completely dubbed as well. So you can
But
play
why
this.
would I not want to listen to it in Japanese?
I mean, I played the entire game in Japanese. So
I think I would too.
the other really nice thing about this is it's still cutscene heavy because it's the same studio who makes Yakuza, which is always going to air on the this is our Yakuza crime movie. They're in their minds, and this is something that the creative director of the game said at E3 with an interview with an outlet I've already forgotten the name of. They make games for the Asian audience first, and then they release them to the West. And if you know anything about Asian cinema, like if you've ever watched a Jet Li movie, you know that the ones that are really thoughtful, like Hero or
I was gonna say Hero
yeah.
is like
Hero is slow. It is
I
very.
love Hero.
I love it
It is-
too.
It is so slow, but it's I completely agree. It's
So
very
it's
slow
the
movie.
same mindset that comes into making these games. It's a movie in their minds that that you're interacting with. They're creating, a Yakuza crime movie that just so happens that you can go to a cat cafe and pet cats. The combat in this game, though, reminds me more of Yakuza 0, where you had multiple styles. Yagami is by far the most fun I've had in a Yakuza game in terms of the combat because it's so fast, it's so fluid. You can jump off walls, but you still have the same hilarity of there's one EX move that if you're in the middle of a street and you press the EX button, you'll go into this little cutscene that has you kicking the guy, and a car comes up, and the guy almost gets hit by the car. He slams his hand on the car, only to get pulled in, and now he's sitting between two burly Yakuza. And he's like, fuck, I'm going to get my ass kicked. And it drives away with him in it. So basically, you take care of one of your enemies, but you do it in a way that you know he's probably going to end up in a dumpster somewhere. There are other EX moves, like if you are nearby a wall, you'll take the guy's head and slam it into the wall. You can pick up most things in the street and literally just bash people's heads in with it. It's the same over-the-top Yakuza combat that we've loved for years, but it just feels more fluid. It feels more grounded. And even though it doesn't feel as heavy or as sluggish as Yakuza 6, you can still tell there's some physics involved with this combat because it doesn't feel floaty, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
It's definitely worth playing. I think the story is one of the best, like I said, the best murder mysteries I've ever played in a video game. It's slow. It's a Yakuza game, essentially. It's got a lot of repeatable missions in terms of you'll be doing a lot of tailing people, a lot of observation, surveying crime scenes and stuff. One of the other nice things I like is a lot of the conversation trees require that you have paid attention to crime scene photos and the crime scene itself. So it does require a little bit of actual investigative gameplay, which I think is pretty cool. It's definitely worth playing. It's only on PS4 right now, but if history has taught us anything in the last 2 years, Sega's been bringing all of these games to PC as well. So it may show up on PC in the near future. It's not perfect in terms of its performance. There are points where it drops into the low 20s. And I was also playing it on a base PS4, and that's only 900p on the PS4. It's only 1080p on the PS4 Pro, so it's not a huge improvement there. But it's definitely one of my favorite games I've played in the last year. The other game I played, though, is Samurai Showdown. And real quickly, because we have a pretty pretty stacked tail end of the show. Uh, this is, without a shadow of a doubt, one of my favorite fighting games now. I've always loved fighting games. My main fighting game I've always loved playing is Soul Calibur. It's been Soul Calibur and Smash are the two games that I've always played. Samurai Showdown, this specific version, is one I will just continue playing now. It's not going to be deleted off my PS4 like Street Fighter and King of Fighters and other games have. And the main reason for that is one of the things I hate about a lot of fighting games nowadays is they require you to know these super complicated combos to be able to do anything.
Something I will literally never know.
Yeah. So if you watch a Street Fighter, high level Street Fighter play, you're gonna see the same combos kind of strung back and forth. And what makes the Street Fighter play so high level is the fact that the players are so patient in terms of when they do these combos, when they go off, whether or not they whiff, if they punish, their neutral game, footsies, all of that stuff is so locked down. But any button masher could go in to just a normal setting and win simply by just mashing everything. My kid has beat me, yeah, like you, like that time you beat me with a broken stick.
Yep.
My kid beats me in Soul Calibur all the time because of button mashing. It's a very button mash friendly game. Samurai Showdown has got to be the game, in my opinion, that is the most fundamentally focused fighting game out there. This is a game that anybody who wants to get into the genre, if they have the patience to learn, will make them just infinitely better at every other fighting game out there, because it stresses fundamentals, it stresses patience, it stresses neutral space, it stresses footsies. It's not a game where you're going to see 25 hit combos on the regular. It's a game where you're going to see 2 to 3 hit combos, but those combos are going to be so devastating that the person who whiffed or got punished isn't going to be able to recover. I also like the strategic aspect of the power meter that you have. It's called the rage meter. Your rage meter gets filled up not by attacks that you do, but by getting attacked. So a lot of the times when you get punished, or if your opponent gets a few cheap shots in, you're going to build up this rage meter, and it unlocks more powerful forms of some of your moves. One move specifically called a weapon flipping technique. The weapon flipping technique is only available when you have a level 3 rage meter. And essentially what it does is it disarms your opponent, which is huge for a lot of players because most characters don't really do well without their weapon. There are a few There are a few characters that do well, like Galford, which is the guy who's pictured as my featured image there with the puppy.
Can you pet the dog?
You cannot pet the dog, but you call him Poppy.
That is lame.
His name is Poppy. He is just as deadly without his weapons as he is, because he has fireballs and he can throw the dog at you. Literally.
Pinter's asking, can you define footsies?
So footsies are literally what it sounds like. Footsies, keeping the opponent away by using low sweeps, low kicks. Essentially, it's a way to the space in between you and the opponent is called neutral space. It's a way to control that neutral space without allowing your opponent to close in. And in a game like this, where one hit can send you to the loser's bracket, or one hit could be the end of the round, being able to completely dominate that neutral space with even just light footsie attacks or light swings of your sword is a game changer. Footsies, though, specifically usually refers to using low kicks and sweeps and stuff like that.
Question.
Yeah.
How Japanese is this game?
100%. Like, this isn't a Kurosawa film. This is so Japanese. The dude who's doing the announcements in the game, when you're in the menu and you select verses, he literally says like "fasesu." When you select trading, it's "trading." Like, it is so. This
is a game Japanese. I could play.
This is the game that I kept sending you videos of all the Japanese.
Oh.
Yeah. I really like this game simply because it stresses those fundamentals. It will make you a better fighting game player over every game, not just this one. I also like because any one move can mean the end of the round, regardless of whether you have a pixel health left or an entire bar. You have to each round is tense. The fact that you can only use your rage meter once in the entire match makes it even more tense. The fact that you can only use your super move once in the entire match makes it even more tense because you have to pick and choose your moments to use those specials. And once you use it, whether you land it or not, they're gone. So it becomes not just a test of your patience and your fundamental play, but it also becomes a test of your own tactical ability, when to use those special attacks, when to punish with something like that. Are you going to do a wake up special where you get up off the ground and you've already buffered the skill into your fight stick so that when the minute you get up, you're activating that move? Are you going to do it at the end of a combo? Are you just not going to do it at all? You know, there are so many mind games you can play with your opponent just based on the fundamentals of this. It's a really good game. If you're into fighting games at all, it's phenomenal. The story is pretty decent. I hate the fact that the last boss, everything I was just talking about how great this game is and the reasons why, the last boss in the story mode completely makes you forget how to play the game because you have to play it 180 degrees differently. It's a complete reversal. It ignores all of the rules that you spent the entire story mode learning, so it's a little frustrating. I do love the art style in this game. Everything is just, it's beautiful. The use of color in this game reminds me a lot of Destiny's 2's vibrant use of color. And the music completely sets the mood of like Edo period Japan as well. It uses all traditional Japanese instruments. Like I said, it definitely feels like a Kurosawa samurai flick, if you've ever seen one of those.
How many times do they say samurai showdown?
Only once when you start the game. There's also a nice little touch too, which I don't think I talked about in the review, but I always found it really cool, is the last character you played as in any mode is the character they show on the menu screen. So it's a nice touch. It's so small, but to me it's really, really cool to see. So anyways, if you like fighting games or if you're looking to get into one, this is going to test your patience, but I honestly think if you're looking to get into fighting games, this is the one to start with now.
Well, all right. And before we move on, just real quick, just about the Elder Scrolls Online live stream. If you did miss an episode, don't worry, because I have a playlist that I created on my YouTube channel. So definitely check that out, and you can watch any episodes that you missed on there, and it should be good. But Bradford, we have quite a few things to talk about. This article that you couple of articles that you showed up, I didn't even know about. So let's talk about this.
So GamesIndustry.biz does a lot of really good industry specific articles. They don't just talk about why a game is good. They go into the actual industry, hence the name. One of the articles they wrote up from E3 was an interview with Pete Hines, which he really hasn't done many interviews since Fallout 76 released. In fact, if you go back and look at Pete Hines' Twitter feed, there's a complete drop-off in personal tweets immediately after Fallout 76 launched. And that's because a lot of the people who were upset about the state of Fallout 76 were calling him out on Twitter for being nonchalant with all the buying customers who were getting screwed out of Fallout 76 because Pete was tweeting about like being on vacation and crap, which, to be fair, it's his personal Twitter account. He's definitely allowed to do that, but it's a really bad look when it's the same Twitter account that you use to promote the games that you market. So in this interview, it's all about saving Fallout 76, which, whether it's saved or not, is debatable. You know, if you like Fallout 76, you're going to be gung-ho, oh yeah, it's much better now than it was at launch. If you never played it, you'll have zero clue. Like myself, I never actually played Fallout 76. So whether or not it's saved right now is irrelevant to me. But there's an interesting parallel within Bethesda's publishing house. Two of its studios kind of dealt with the same thing. Fallout 76 is dealing with a lot of the same crap that the Elder Scrolls Online team dealt with at launch, when Elder Scrolls overpromised the single-player Elder Scrollsian aspects of the game, and then released a game that didn't feel like anything they talked about. Now, to be fair...
And honestly, just to interject real quick, that's one of the biggest reasons why I just left, and that's why that was the impression of the game I had for years.
Yeah. So, to be fair, though, it didn't release broken. It didn't release with massive technical issues.
It had content.
It had content. It had human NPCs. It
Jesus Christ.
didn't release with performance issues on the console versions. I mean, say what you will, they're pretty solid 30 FPS. They also didn't promise specific collector's editions and then not actually deliver those collector's editions. So there's a lot of differences here as well.
They didn't leak and expose user data
Yeah, that too.
to other users.
But we'll get into
didn't-
all of the things that Fallout 76 did wrong. The interesting, though, what the parallel is essentially the Bethesda Game Studios team had never done a game like this before. They've always done large-scale single-player games. And by and large, they've been mostly excellent. I mean, you can debate Fallout 4. A lot of people love Fallout 4. I know that you ended up enjoying the story, but it's still, you didn't like the dated engine. Myself,
Well,
I wasn't. Go ahead.
I was gonna say I didn't really. I mean, the Oblivion. I mean, not Oblivion. The Bethesda stories. They don't know how to write. I did enjoy just the wandering around and
Okay.
exploring and stuff, but the story was mad. But you're right about the engine. That needs to go.
Yeah. So this was basically Fallout's online debut, much like Elder Scrolls Online was Elder Scrolls' online debut. And it was a mess. If you think back to when this game launched, and I think it was November of last year, we listed all those issues. No content at launch. It was broken at launch. There was data leaks. There was collector's editions that weren't given the actual stuff people were advertised.
Todd Howard got up on stage on E3 last year and straight up lied to people.
Yeah, there was just tons of over hype, under delivering on any of it. A lot of lies. And Pete Hines wasn't innocent in this either. It's his job to market his game. And there was basically one quote in this. They're like I said, they're equating this to Fallout, to Elder Scrolls Online, which had a bumpy launch as well. Let's just face it. It did. It still hasn't fully recovered from it as well. Even though it's a very popular MMO, and in my opinion, I think it's the best MMO on the market right now in terms of anybody being able to jump in and just play. It doesn't require you to know 13 years of history like World of Warcraft does, or Final Fantasy XIV is a story-driven MMO to the point that you literally can't start the new expansion until you've gone through the previous 5 years worth of expansions. So from that standpoint, Elder Scrolls is basically reborn. It's itself. It's gone the Final Fantasy XIV route, where they released a really bad game in 2010, redid it completely, re-released it in 2014. Elder Scrolls Online did kind of the same thing with Tamriel Unlimited in 2016, where they completely overhauled the leveling, they completely overhauled the alliance system. They made it feel like the Elder Scrolls game that they promised it would be, in terms of being able to go anywhere, start anywhere, quest anywhere. It still has those MMO things. It's still an MMO, but by and large, they did a lot to repair the damage that they did when they released the game.
As evidenced by my just complete joy playing it.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Bethesda Game Studios team is trying to do the same thing. They're taking a lot of cues from the Elder Scrolls Online team. They're seeing what they did with Elder Scrolls Online and how they can implement it in what they're doing with Fallout 76. And a lot of that has to do with content. A lot of it has to do with fixing issues in the game, figuring out what's fundamentally flawed with Fallout 76, and trying to figure out ways that they can fix that or change it or do what they need to do, whether it be a new business model, releasing new game modes like their Battle Royale mode they announced at E3. Think about it too. They literally announced human NPCs, which every video game has had basically since Zork. And keep in mind, Zork is a text-based game from like the 80s, but it had human NPCs when you get down to it. And they got more cheers for that than I think anything else at their show. It's baffling,
Just mind-blowing.
but in their mind, what they're trying to do is they're trying to emulate the success that Elder Scrolls had when it basically redid itself. They're doing that to Fallout 76, and in the meantime as well, they're trying to be, in Pete Hines' own words, more transparent, more communicative, and more visible than they ever have been at Bethesda Game Studios. The thing that rubbed me the wrong way, though, is this quote where he basically showed that he either is really good at PR, which obviously he must be because he's the vice president of a multi-million-dollar game publisher, or he just does not connect at all with what the issues were with Fallout 76. It's this quote here. Ultimately, nope, that's the wrong quote. That's actually I am going to read the paragraph before to set up the context. Ultimately, it's down to the team. Communication is great, but if the game isn't improving, then it doesn't really mean anything. It really came down to that team putting in the work because we by no means consider ourselves done. There are lots that we want to do, but the game is making improvements and coming out with cool stuff that people seem to really take to. That stuff, like with The Elder Scrolls Online, improved the value and the commitment, particularly those who have stayed with us from the start, right? There's a lot of them, and they not only stuck with us when we were dealing with problems and issues, but also stuck with us when it was very popular and trendy to kick us while we're down and pile on Fallout 76. They stuck to their guns and weren't swayed by people. So when you hear that quote, Shank, what is your first impression of Pete Hines in that exact moment?
I mean, he is a untrustworthy human being.
Okay.
Like, the rage that I feel, I can't really even put that into words. I really can't. Like, what he is doing is he is not answering the question, and he is showing either just genuine ignorance or what I actually think willful ignorance of missing the entire point of why people had issue with Fallout 76 and why you can't compare Fallout 76 and ESO. They're not one-to-one. And he is willfully just doesn't get it. That to me is that enrages me.
Yeah, and I agree there that you can't compare what happened with ESO to what happened with Fallout 76. They're not a one-to-one comparison. I do think that you can take some lessons from what ESO had to do to basically rebuild itself and rebrand itself. You can take those lessons and implement them here with Fallout 76, because that's what it's going to take for this game to essentially stop being the laughingstock that it still is. I mean, think about it. When we went into E3, people still had not received the canvas bags from 6 months previous, you know? And you can make the argument, well, a lot of that may have just been up to manufacturing and getting them ready. They should have already had them manufactured ready and shipped originally, though, because that's what they sold people. To me, this shows the complete disconnect. He's literally congratulating players for sticking with a broken game and not listening to the justified. Yeah, sure, a lot of the complaints and crap you see on the internet, complete trollery, complete just dogpiling on things, but the core of why it was happening doesn't change. You can't change facts. Facts are this game was broken at launch. It lacked content. It had crap performance on any platform you played it on. You had a Bethesda representative when you can say they were an independent contractor, but they were working for you with your name on the portal. They were interacting with clients. So they were a Bethesda representative saying to clients that had complaints about the issues, we aren't going to do anything about it, or whatever they said. I believe it was pretty much that.
We're not going to do anything about it.
Yeah. You had justified anger towards your game, making it worse when you had Todd Howard interviewed before E3, basically stating that they knew this game wasn't where it needed to be. They knew they were going to have to do a lot of work after launch to get this game to be anything worth anybody's money, but yet they still went out, sold the game, marketed the game, lied to consumers, false advertised to consumers, released a broken game at launch, and then sat back and pretended like nothing was wrong, like nothing is happening here. And to me, this quote shows the mindset within that studio, that people weren't piling onto this because it was justified or it was needed. They were piling on because it's trendy, because it's the popular thing to do. And it shows a complete disconnect with the actual issues your consumers went through.
Which is that it was broken, and there was that anger, what people were piling on because it was justified to pile on.
Now, to be funny, to be fair, this quote isn't actually why I originally wanted to talk about this, but as I delved deeper into it, I just kind of went into that. I originally saw this on Games Radar.
Hold on, just
yeah,
I'm sorry, real quick before you get into your next point. I propose that one of the reasons these people say the things that they do, and by these people I mean Todd Howard and Pete Hines, and just those two smiling fools that got up on stage and talked about Fallout 76, and were so like just blind to everything what they were saying. The reason why they say these things is because of the feedback that they got. You saw the ravenous applause that they got at E3. It's because of consumers who don't care.
Well,
and will literally just sit there and cheer without thinking like, okay, they're giving us stuff that should have been in the game, that should have been in any game. That blind loyalty and like apathy and willingness to just say, it's okay. I mean, that is a huge reason why these people can get away with doing this. It's because they see the reaction from people and they're like, oh, they like it. Cool.
In fairness, there were a lot of influencers there that were literally there because Bethesda invited them. But the vast majority of that press conference is usually Bethesda employees from across the different studios. So you're not going to get completely unbiased applause. They're not going to sit there and not applaud the company that they literally work for or the games that they're working on. So to just gauge it based off of especially a small press conference like Bethesda, it's the smallest one out of all of them in terms of venue and crowd size. Sure, you have some media there, but there isn't like a media section. You're interspersed in with the crowd. You have some influencers there because Bethesda always flies out influencers to talk about their games because that's part of their marketing. But the vast majority of people there, in my experience, when I've talked to people and I've seen the badges at these after parties after this press conference, they're all Bethesda employees. So I won't sit there and say that it's 100% what you hear is that blind consumerism, because a lot of it is just them cheering for their own games. But your point isn't without merit, because we see that online all the time. The blind loyalty, the blind passion for something or for someone simply because they have made a game that you hold dear. People
and I'm not saying that entire audience was that, but like when you see cuts of when you actually watch the press conference and when the camera cuts, you see people freaking out, and like those
are influencers.
Like, I mean, this is when you have a core of your audience who will defend you to the death and are just completely blind to objective evidence. And they are the loudest amongst your feedback loop. When you see that tells you, oh, hey, they like it. Okay, we're going to keep doing more of this. And that is the feedback loop. I mean, I can't begin to describe how frustrating and enraging that is whenever I see people who just do not think critically. Like, that makes me so mad, and it's reasons why it's why these interviews like this exist in the first place. Like, this is ridiculous. This should not even be on here. Fallout 76 should not have existed. Like, the fact that we're still talking about it, that to me is ridiculous.
Well, because it exists, we have to report on it. We're not going to pass up you're not going to pass up a story. If you're going to have a game out there, it needs to be talked about. And part of the story of Fallout 76 is how Bethesda is trying to save it. So I do think this article should exist. And the games industry
you get what I'm saying,
no, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
The games industry interview is actually really good. It's the games industry reviewer, Christopher Dring, doesn't throw punches, and he just lets Pete Hines speak. Essentially, he uses Hines' own quotes and just lets him speak for himself. He doesn't try to add any conjecture, which I like. He specifically calls out the technical issues, how it was poorly received by critics, how fans were disappointed, ton of missteps with the Bethesda Game Studios team. he doesn't pull punches with this. It's reporting by Zoe Delahunty Light, however, that I think is more of an issue than that article existing. Which at the end of the day, I get what you're saying. It shouldn't exist because Fallout 76 shouldn't exist, but it exists, so articles about it are going to. It's reporting like what Games Radar did. And full disclosure, I have written for Games Radar before. I did a few years ago when Fallout 4 came out. And when you read a news article, do you expect to find news and just reporting on something? Do you expect to find news reporting and just complete unbiased garbage from the person writing the article?
Okay, so in the games industry, I expect the actual what is being like the actual news item. In the games industry, I expect the news item mixed with bias, because that is just how little I think of games industry journalism. In normal journalism, and I'm using air quotes, just give me what happened. Give me the facts. Don't give me an opinion.
So when you write up a news article about where you're quoting another interview, the quotes should be what really stand out here. And to me, the quotes weren't what stood out. It was this opening paragraph by Zoe, who, by all accounts, is probably a really cool person. I've never met Zoe, whatever. They're probably really nice, and they obviously care about games and the people that make them. And that, I think, might be part of the issue. This opening paragraph states, quote, Pete Hines has recently opened up about just how much of an impact Elder Scrolls Online had on Fallout 76, and boy, it's a lot. In an interview with GamesIndustry.biz, Hines went into a lot of depth about the lessons the Bethesda team learned, which that infuriates me there, from the launch and continuing support of the Elder Scrolls MMO, in particular thanking the fans who, quote, stuck to their guns and weren't swayed by people, end quote, and excuse me for 1 second as I have something in my eye. It's that last part of the sentence that just doesn't need to be there, first of all, but the fact that it was written and the editor allowed something like that, I get wanting to inject voice and be different into everything that your site does, but you're not here to give your opinion on what you think of Fallout 76. You're reporting news. You're reporting an interview. You're telling people that this interview existed. This is why this is important. This is why you should go read it. You've used learnt twice in 2 paragraphs, and I don't think you should write anymore, Zoe. But since you probably are going to, news reporting should be unbiased. That's why opinion pieces exist. Should be. And that's any news, whether it's political news, whether it's games news. Journalism is journalism, regardless of the industry. I don't mind people, obviously I want people to have opinions, because otherwise this industry wouldn't thrive. Reviews are important. Opinion pieces as to why something should be the way it is or isn't the way it should be and how it can be fixed, those are important. But take a look at the overall tone of this game's Radar piece and how it's basically written from the perspective of how we have to champion the plight of the Fallout 76 developers. How we have to hope that all of these people who spent all of their time on making this game are, it's worth it in the end. The last paragraph kind of solidifies that thinking with this last sentence. It's a complete run-on. In fact, I think this last paragraph is all one sentence. Elder Scrolls Online's latest expansion Elsewhere is already in full... Oh, it's 2 sentences. 2 sentences. It's already in full force. Having played a chunk of it myself, it's already proving to be a heck of a lot of fun. With Somerset, the previous expansion, being straight up gold, as our own Rachel Weber talks about in this article, ESO is definitely winning over gamers who might have never touched an MMO before. 3 sentences, I'm sorry guys. With Fallout 76 coming out with its Wastelanders update soon, which brings human NPCs to the game for the first time, this interview makes it sound like good things are on the horizon as Bethesda are listening to their community. So let's keep our fingers crossed that the Wastelanders update is the first step towards a bright future for Fallout 76. That kind of, show off, talk about the review that you did. Link back to, that's, first of all, that's good SEO, but you don't need to add things in. Like let's hope. This is where I think, and I see this all the time from games media people, and I don't want people to think that I'm heartless. I'm not. I I'm not. You know. But at the end of the day, they released a broken game, and in some respects swindled people out of their hard-earned money in terms of releasing a broken game or falsely advertising a product that they purchased, if it be the collector's edition. We shouldn't be hoping for anything here other than the team learns from this, doesn't ever do it again, and Fallout 76 dies. Okay? This comes from the fact that a lot of games industry people don't think you should be critical of the developers because developers are human beings who spent a lot of time making these games and don't deserve that kind of criticism. And I'm sorry, first of all, you shouldn't have criticism in a news article anyway. You should just report the news in this article. But if you're going to add opinion, it should be critical, well thought out opinion. This is where the empathy towards the people who make these games subverts the actual job of the journalist. This is where the being on too friendly terms with the people who make these games, the people that you report on, hinders your ability to do your job as a journalist. That's not to say that you can't be friends with people on all sides of the industry. I've got friends who are developers. I've got friends who are media. I've got friends who are PR. And I disclose those relationships all the time when I write about them. And those relationships do not sway my ability to write a scathing piece if I have to. In fact, I've done it with Sega games before. One of my good friends is the PR guy for Sega, and I've done it with his crap before. I don't know. I'm kind of rambling here because this kind of really it makes games industry, makes the prestige of what games media should be even worse by seeing stuff like that. I don't know what you think about this. If I'm completely out of my depth here and in the wrong, but that kind of, it just rubbed me the wrong way. And then you add in the quote from Pete Hines being completely disconnected from the people who bought his game, and it just, I have zero hope for this industry moving forward.
I didn't have hope for like years ago. Like this to me, stuff like this, honestly, again, this isn't this. Don't think that this is like some unique thing. This happens a lot. There's a reason why I just generally, I always say I love video games. I hate the video game industry. Journalism is a part of that industry, like it or not. And it's stuff like this that I just don't have respect for people in this industry. I just don't. And it's stuff like this. And I'll just end with there's a reason why I only write opinion pieces and reviews. Because
which reviews are opinion pieces at the end of the day.
Yes, yeah, or I guess op-eds, I don't know, whatever the actual terminology is. But there's a reason why I started putting the word opinion in front of my articles, because you could clearly tell that, oh, this is not a news piece, this is an opinion piece. And if you read my articles, yes, I will point back to news articles, but what I do is I point back to the news article and then do my own analysis of it.
Well, the news should inform your opinion.
I'm not bundling up the news and my opinion and calling this a news article. That's not how it works. As soon as you put your own opinion into something, it's an opinion article.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, this article, I agree. It rubs me the wrong way for a couple of reasons. And it's this whole notion of, again, it goes back to what I was saying when we were talking about the previous comment and I was talking about E3. You will always get those consumers, because journalists are consumers. Let's not forget that. You will always get those consumers who feel compelled to defend their game, their personality, their gaming personality, their favorite game developer, out of this intangible sort of subjective, just illogical love or something. It literally doesn't make sense to somebody like me, but you always get people who are always kind of on the defensive, and it comes out more passively like this with comments like, let me, I have something in my eye. It always comes out like that. It's subtle, but that is still that defensism. And it is that inability to strip that away and think critically, that is honestly why we are in the position we're in this industry, is because a lot of people, from journalists to publishers to consumers to just media, everyone else in the media, lack the ability to think critically. Again, I've been beating this drum for years. There's a lack of critical thinking. This is just one more example, and it pisses me off, and that's why I write opinion pieces and not news pieces.
Yeah, I don't write news pieces simply because I don't have time, but there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it, and the industry itself is just becoming less and less critical by the day. Because again, you can like Fallout 76 all you want, but when you're reporting news, I shouldn't know whether you enjoyed the game or not. I should just know what the facts of the news are supposed to be. So, anyways, speaking of actual news pieces,
Yeah,
actual investigative reporting.
Yeah, this is. I disagree with Jason Schreier on a lot of things, like a lot of things. I think that he looks at the industry from everything that I've read about, like not about him, but read from him and just followed him on Twitter, just read his comments, basically everything. You get the picture that he is approaching the industry from the journalist's mindset, which makes sense because he's a journalist, but he's approaching it from the journalist mindset, not so much from the consumer mindset. And in my opinion, and take that for what it's worth, but in my opinion, journalists should always be looking at it from the consumer's perspective. And so there are some things that I disagree with Jason Schreier on. One thing I can't really disagree with him on or fault him in any way is the quality of his investigative work. And he has done quite a lot in this regard. So look at that. I'm actually recognizing something when somebody does something good. Interesting. So this is a long piece on Kotaku. Like this is a legitimate expose on Black Ops 4 and the horrible working conditions in Treyarch, the developer who makes Black Ops 4. And the article is called The Human Cost of Call of Duty Black Ops 4. It's on Kotaku. Absolutely worth a read. In a twist, though, my talking point is not actually about what's in the article itself. We will cover some of it, of course, because it's important, and it just kind of proves a point. But the fact that this article exists in the first place, that is my larger point, and we will get that in. We'll get into that in a little bit here. So, effectively, what happened in this article was Jason interviewed 11 current and former staff members of Treyarch, and he follows a lot of actually the QA. So QA is quality assurance. Quality assurance are basically they're your testers. They test the game. For example, Bethesda Game Studios, their QA sucks because their games are always broken. So there you go. That's me being cheeky there. But this article primarily follows the Treyarch QA testers, and it starts off with talking about compensation. Now, first of all, it's important to remember Treyarch, the publisher for Treyarch is Activision. If you remember, Activision hired a new CFO, that is a chief financial officer by the name of Dennis Durkin, last year, I believe, or earlier this year. I can't remember, but sometime in the very recent past. And he had a cash and stock bonus awarded to him for $15 million. At around the same time, there were basically people in Treyarch who are being paid a base wage of $13 an hour. And this is after the fact that they had been working for basically the past year around 70 hours a week. So the reason I bring this up is because you reconcile a CFO being paid $15 million, and this is just for signing on. So this is literally just, oh, hey, you're new. Here's a bunch of, it's a bonus. That's literally what it is. It's a sign-on bonus. This individual gets $15 million while you have QA testers being paid $13 an hour for working 70 hours a week. Now, that contrast is quite ridiculous, in my opinion. I think that really speaks to how this industry is structured and why it's unsustainable. I think something like this is why it's unsustainable, because companies like Activision, they'll pay their CFO $15 million worth of bonuses and stocks and everything, and then they'll say, oh man, making games is so expensive, that's why we have to put microtransactions, that's why we need to put loot boxes, we didn't have a good quarter because we didn't make as much money, and yet they have enough money clearly to dole out $15 million to their CFO. So this is the dichotomy that I want you guys to start thinking about before you jump in front of your favorite publisher or developer and try to take a bullet for them. This is what you're defending, this ridiculousness. So they're talking about he talks about the salary here and the wages, and a tester said of this, quote, that broke a lot of people. We're getting paid these very minimal amounts working these ridiculous hours, yet these people are getting paid absurd amounts of money. It's just a culture of not being cared about, end quote. And you know what? I would agree with this tester. Obviously, everybody here was anonymous. It's difficult to disagree with this person, right? This isn't some bleeding heart sort of argument. This is just, these are the facts. This is the situation on the ground. A reasonable person cannot look at this and say, yeah, you know what, that's okay. A reasonable person would not say that. A reasonable person would say something's not right here. Jason, of course, did his due diligence, reached out for a comment, but management and they did not make themselves available for interviews or for comments in time for this article, but they offered a statement. And I'm going to read this in full because if this sounds familiar at all, and if the beats sound familiar at all, well, it should. It says, quote, Black Ops 4 represents 3 years of hard work, creativity, and passion from hundreds of talented individuals across Treyarch, Activision studios, and publishing teams, as well as agency partners around the world. It represents the culmination of a wide variety of development initiatives, the best of which comprise the games that our fans are playing today. The teams who created this game are diverse and widespread. It's important to us that everyone working this game or for any of our projects is treated with respect and that their contributions are appreciated. If there is ever an instance where this standard is not met, we work to remedy it immediately. We constantly strive to provide a rewarding and fun development environment for everyone. Everyone at Treyarch is extremely proud of Black Ops 4. We love bringing games to life, and we always want to do our best work for our careers. We realize this is only made possible through the varied perspectives and contributions from every individual working on the team, end quote. So this is your typical PR statement. What beats did they hit? It should be very familiar. They talked about the passions of their developers and their people working on the game. They talked about how enthusiastic and passionate everybody was. They talked about the diversity of this team. They talked about how it's so important for them that everybody is treated with respect. And they talked about how if there's ever an issue brought up, they work to remedy it immediately. These beats, you can literally cut and paste it into any publisher statement, any blanket PR statement from any quote unquote official statement that these people give to the press, and it is going to be the same no matter what publisher you go to. These beats, you are always going to see these beats. And it is tiring. They know it's BS. And I'm pretty sure someone like Jason Schreier knows it's BS. And
Yeah,
what's worse,
considering how many
sure,
I was gonna say, considering how many of these stories he's reported, I'm pretty sure
Exactly.
he could write that statement before it was even given to him, almost word for word.
Exactly. And the worst part of it is I am damn sure the people who give this statement, they know that we know it's BS, yet they do it anyway. And
Well, it's
of
their
course,
job.
exactly. I was going to say the argument is, well, it's their job, but you know what? You can do your job the right way and you can still not be a total disconnected ass to the people that are reporting on this, the people that are buying your game, and the people that are making the game. This is why I have such little respect for these publishers and their PR teams in particular. This is garbage. You can throw this statement away because it means the exact opposite of what it actually says. That's really how you should read these statements. So basically this said nothing, right? This is something we've seen before. The article then talks about kind of how their previous game, Black Ops 3, the plan for Black Ops 3 was originally to feature some sort of open world, except the team kind of basically rebooted it halfway through the production, and they completely scrapped the open world sort of map, and they went with a more traditional linear campaign. Naturally, this led to a lot of crunch. And again, we have an employee quote saying, quote, "For this to happen twice, the morale drop that happened in the studio can't be understated. They'd been promised after Black Ops 3, we're not going to do that again. We're not going to scrap all this work that you've been putting in," end quote. However, it did happen again. And again, I'm just going to pause right here for a second. Again, if this sounds familiar, where have you heard this before? Well, it happened to BioWare, didn't it? Between Mass Effect Andromeda and Anthem, and it happened between Dragon Age and Mass Effect Andromeda. It happened twice at BioWare. This exact same thing. Again, cut and paste. Unsustainable. So what happened with Black Ops 4? Well, what was the big game that came out last October? Red Dead Redemption 2. There was a reason why a bunch of games got moved out to spring this year, and it's because of Red Dead Redemption 2. However, this seriously affected Black Ops 4 because they had to move forward, meaning they had to release Black Ops 4 earlier than intended, and they had to release it on October 12th. This is generally a month before these Call of Duty games release. So what this means is that if you have 1 month less to work on something, you need to make up that work somewhere, right? And that means crunch. In this industry, that means crunch. Here's another quote. Quote, "People were saying, how can we do this? Create an entirely new campaign that takes everything we've put into this other mode that was unsuccessful and still tells our story." And this was right before they realized that the new campaign that they had put into this game was not practical. And so they were coming to this crossroads moment where like, oh wait, this is not going to work. And this essentially forced them to completely cut that campaign out. And this only left that traditional multiplayer and zombies. So for those of us who are justifiably asking, where's the campaign? Because that's literally what makes a Black Ops game a Black Ops game. This is what happened to the campaign. It was completely cut because of these ridiculous decisions from management. So their Blackout mode, which is their Battle Royale, this was a last-minute add-on. And that development for Blackout started in February of 2018, and the game released in October. Mm-hmm. That's insane.
Yep.
Another quote from a developer. Quote, "Now we have even shorter time to put in work on a new mode. Actual development work on Blackout didn't start until 9 months before launch. That mode came together by the seat of its pants. It's kind of a miracle that it did," end quote. So again, this is crunch, right? If this sounds familiar, where did we hear this before? Oh, wait, right. That Red Dead Redemption 2 expose done by Jason Schreier, who basically said that Red Dead Redemption 2, because of a decision to make all of the cutscenes put, a widescreen basically, and put black bars, cinematic black bars, that made them crunch basically that entire last year because everything has to get reframed. It's not just putting black bars. You have to reframe and reshoot kind of the whole thing. It's not a trivial amount of work. That caused serious crunch. Where else did we hear this story of crunch at the last minute during the last year? Of course, Anthem. That game existed really only in the last year of its development. Where else did we hear it? Mass Effect Andromeda. That game really only existed in the last 18 months of its existence. What other game? Dragon Age Inquisition. Again, really only the last 18 months of its existence. There's a reason I'm repeating this here. We're slowly getting to that. The article continues, of course, and they're talking now about the working conditions. When I'm talking about like the physical working conditions, right? Not necessarily about the crunch, but this just makes the crunch worse. Treyarch is in LA, and if you know anything about LA, it's expensive
awful?
to live.
Oh,
Yeah, well, sure. Probably because it's expensive to live.
It's so awful. It's literally the worst place in the world.
I still want to go.
Oh my god, it's so bad.
I feel like
I hate LA.
But for those individuals and employees at the lower end of the salary scale for Treyarch, overtime was really the only way to make ends meet in LA. So there were reports to Jason where some people were telling him that they witnessed that their colleagues were just sleeping in the office, and there was a culture of drinking to cope with the crunch. That is psychological abuse. I don't care what argument you throw my way. That is psychological abuse. And again, quotes, there were weeks straight when I was not taking weekends. Panic attacks, burnout, disassociation. You feel like your boundaries are being violated. You lose all passion for what you're doing and forget why you were doing it in the first place. It's a nightmare, end quote. That is psychological abuse. I don't care what you're going to say. It's psychological abuse. This coupled with the fact that in the summer, the AC was broken. Again, we're talking about working condition. They reported this. A tester said, quote, they told us the AC was broken even though it worked all day and turned off at the exact same time each day. No matter how much we pressed them to do something or get it fixed, nothing would happen. Another individual said, I had coworkers who were literally sweating through their clothing. Eventually, it took 2 months for the QA leads emailing their offices, basically saying, hey, don't turn off the AC. And still sometimes they would forget. That is inhumane working conditions. That is only scratching the surface of this article. The article goes on and on. Now, that's probably maybe a third of the article that I covered here. But if you want to go read the rest of the article, and I urge you to, it's 100% worth the read. It's a long read for sure. Read it on your lunch break. Read it when you're drinking coffee in the morning. Whatever you want, read it. This is what my larger point in all of this is, that this is becoming way too common. And again, like I've said in the past, I don't know if it's because the reporting is becoming common and it's just been going on for a while and we just haven't heard about it and the reporting is becoming common, or if crunch itself has just become more common and we're hearing about it more. I honestly don't know which one is the truth. But regardless, I think that's besides the point. The point is that look at what we've heard of in the last few years alone. Black Ops 4. Insane crunch at Epic with Fortnite. Anthem. Mass Effect Andromeda. Red Dead Redemption 2. Dragon Age Inquisition. I just listed off six very, very high-profile games this console generation alone.
Mm-hmm. All and from high-profile studios as well.
All from high-profile studios, all from quote-unquote AAA publishers.
And I don't know if you mentioned this too. In your list, The Witcher 3 went through this
Witcher
as well.
Witcher 3, yes, absolutely.
A studio that we love in CDPR did the exact same thing that this, studio and all these other studios have been doing.
Yeah, and just this week we had Blizzard saying, yes, crunch is bad, but Blizzard wouldn't be Blizzard without crunch. But you know what? If you couldn't be what you are now without crunch, that is a problem with management. Mm-hmm. That is not a problem with the game. That is not a problem with your people making the game. That is a problem with management. If you cannot manage your time and resources properly, and you're saying that is the only reason we are what we are, I refuse to accept that. That is a mismanagement issue. That is on you, the managers and the people who lead the studios, to manage your time and resources better and to say, you know what? This is just going to take more time. We're just going to push it back because we're not going to want to crunch.
Now,
and we're not going to treat our people that way.
When you read the article, did you see the update at the bottom that essentially it was an internal memo that went out after the story released that Kotaku got?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you want to cover that? Go
ahead. Yeah, I'll read it real quick because this is obviously not something that was ever supposed to be made public, but it did because Kotaku has sources.
Just like the BioWare memo, I'm just going to point out.
This was sent by Dan Bunting and Mark Gordon, who are studio heads for Treyarch, to the staff. Team, today Kotaku published a story that explores a number of reported behind-the-scenes issues in Black Ops 4 development. The first and most important statement that we want to make to the team is that, as managers of the studio, we take the well-being of every single individual working here very seriously. We have a vision for the future of the studio that includes significant improvements to work-life balance. We plan to achieve that through better project planning, streamlined production processes, and rigorous decision-making timelines. It is also our intention to maintain our commitment to increased transparency. Getting there will require time, hard work, and commitment. Most of all, it will require open communication. If you ever feel like your needs aren't being met, please do not hesitate to communicate actively with your manager. No one should ever feel like they don't have options, can't talk openly, or that the only choice is to take their concerns to the public. These conversations should always start with an honest dialogue with your department manager, and if that's not working, feel free to reach out to one of us. Game development is a wildly complex art. It requires a diverse set of people and skills sets to do it successfully. It's important for all of us to foster a studio culture that treats all team members with respect. We appreciate the contributions made by all parts of the team in the name of the games we make. Sincerely, Denmark. The takeaway from this is, for me, the fact that this memo was even necessary is part of the issue as well. That they didn't recognize the studio culture that they themselves were fostering. And yeah, sure, a lot of it could simply be because people feared for their jobs and didn't think that they could talk to management about their issues. There is that deep-rooted mindset that is justified, a lot of times by people speaking out and then losing their jobs as a result. That makes people not talk about it. And who knows, maybe Danimark were just willfully ignorant of this entire thing because they're raking in the dough like crazy. But this reads just like every other statement we see from any studio that has to release something in response to a article that exposes all of their dirty laundry. And I specifically like the point where they talk about how each conversation should always start with an honest dialogue with your department manager. The problem with saying something like that is you are passive aggressively saying, don't talk to the press. Don't make our dirty laundry public. Talk to your manager. But if the system is not in place to where you feel as though you can have that new open communication with your manager, that's never going to happen. I've been in jobs where I never felt as though I could talk to my boss openly about the issue with that job. The funny thing is I talk to him like pretty much all the time now after not working there for about 5 years. But when I was working there, I was fearful of my job anytime there was an issue that came up. And so I would just bottle it up until I couldn't take it anymore and I quit. I guarantee you that's what a lot of these people who went on the record, who still currently work there, felt, and why this expose had to happen. But the fact that these guys put out this statement the way that they did right after the fact, instead of publicly commenting on it themselves, and then the statement reads like basically every statement we saw with Red Dead Redemption, with Blizzard, whatever.
Casey
It's
Hudson
just
with the anthem.
yeah,
like
it's just
literally
it's
the exact same words.
It's just mind blowing. Not to be, yeah, this industry is not going to get better until there are. I'm really hoping Riot gets screwed by the California thing that's happening right now. Mm-hmm. If you're not aware, the state of California is looking into potentially pressing charges against Riot for a lot of these practices, both from a gender discrimination and labor issue. And a lot of these game companies are in California. So my hope is that Riot gets raked over the coals and it forces, because at the end of the day, nobody's going to make any meaningful changes unless it affects the bottom line. If Dan and Mark can't buy their 3 or 4 Ferraris anymore, then they're going to meaningfully want to make change. And who knows, maybe this article is the wake-up call they needed. I don't know. I don't work there. But it's so sad that as someone who hates government regulation, the only thing I can think of that's going to save the situation is more regulation.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Like, I personally think, like, you need to be good enough to regulate yourself because, like, that's...
But they haven't proven they can.
Exactly. If they could, they would have done it already, but they don't want to. They can't.
The sad part is I think they can, but there is no incentive for them to do so.
I actually don't think they can. I don't think they possess not just the competence, but the mindset to actually do the change, because I don't think they know what the change is.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what the change is, you can't implement the change. And these companies, I mean, yeah, like, I don't think government regulation is like, I personally kind of stay out of my life. But this is how bad this industry is, that I'm actually saying, like, no, this this actually needs to happen. There needs to be some regulation on this, because I just listed off only 6 stories of insane crunch and abuse for the developers that they had to go through. And they're all the same. If something was going to change, it would have done so already, but it hasn't. And you get crap like this, which always happens. The other thing that I keep saying, again, if you've listened to our shows in the past, I don't like unions. I really don't. What modern unions have become, I don't like that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a case where I'm like, you know what? A union is necessary just to legitimately protect the developers. They have no voice, and they're being psychologically abused. They are being driven to breakdowns, to drinking. I mean, that's insane. But despite all of this rightful kind of anger and insanity over this, that's actually not my point. My point is, I just read you a piece of this article, and 99% of it sounded extremely familiar. I could have replaced Treyarch with any other high-profile developer. I could have replaced Activision with any other publisher. And it would have been applicable to basically anywhere else in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
The story is becoming the same. And when something keeps happening over and over again, the first couple of times, oh my God, that's horrible. 5th, 6th time, oh, there's crunch again. Okay, what else is in the news? That is the numbing effect that this is happening. By the way, I'm not faulting Jason Schreier at all. This kind of stuff needs to be talked about, and he's doing the right thing here. I 100% believe that. My point is that because this happens so frequently, your average consumer is going to look at this and it's going to fall on deaf ears. At a certain point, this is going to fall on deaf ears because it's going to become so commonplace, tragically commonplace. And the only real way I think this can actually change is number one, well, 2 ways, right? Number one, if consumers just stop buying these games, which we know objectively will never happen, because there are enough people out there who will blindly buy Call of Duty no matter what.
Yeah, it's the only game they play all year, so they're going to buy it regardless of anything going around with it.
Just like you have people that are just going to blindly cheer people like Bethesda, you're going to have these people that will blindly stick by their game no matter what. And they're always going to fund these people. They're going to be people who will always buy those microtransactions and loot boxes no matter what. And it is going to give this feedback loop to these developers. So 2 ways this will change is if people stop buying, which as I just said won't happen, or number 2, we actually get regulation. And again, I cannot believe that I'm saying that, but that is legitimately the more realistic solution for the health and protection of these developers, because we know these publishers and developers will not self-regulate, because again, from the years that I have been covering this stuff, if they were going to change, they would have done so, but they have not. They haven't. It has gotten worse. If anything, it's honestly gotten worse, and we can easily track that. So that is the real point, is that this is going to become a numbing issue to the mainstream public and the mainstream
It already kind
consumer.
of has too, which is a sad thing.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous, right? This is not okay. This should not be normal. None of this should be normalized. That's the reason people are getting numb, is because it's becoming normalized, and it should not be normalized. People need to think about this stuff and like really not buy these games. They really need to, like, I mean, I've been saying this for a while now. This industry is going to crash. What is happening in this industry is unsustainable from virtually all respects, from virtually all angles. This is an unsustainable industry. Consumers, you have people that will just buy whatever blindly. You have games that are becoming more and more expensive. $60 is not the game anymore. It's an entry fee before they ask you for either $120 collector's edition or just microtransactions and loot boxes.
Yep.
It is becoming unsustainable from a human working condition standpoint, as we just covered repeatedly. It is becoming unsustainable from the media standpoint, with journalists becoming less and less competent in what they're actually saying to the people they need to be educating. This industry is going to crash, and when it does, I cannot wait for that day to happen. And I say that knowing full well how much I love games, and I say that not because I want these developers to lose their jobs, but because that is legitimately the only real thing right now that will be a real kick in the pants to all parties, not publishers, not developers, literally everybody, to say, you know what, that was messed up and we can't do that again.
Mm-hmm.
A crash, a legitimate crash. And that's my whole point. This is completely unsustainable. It's inhumane. It's ludicrous. It is. Making money is a great thing. There's a right way to do it, and there's a wrong way to do it. The games industry is a poster child for ravenous, unsatiated, unadulterated, inhumane greed. And it is tragic state of affairs we are in right now. So yeah, 3 very heavy articles to talk about. If you just listening to this show, it might sound like we're complaining a lot about stuff, but if you genuinely think we're complaining, then you really need to change your attitude about the industry. I'm just going to be straight up and be blunt with you. You need to change your attitude and start opening your eyes more. Lot to talk about tonight, but worth discussing because these kind of things need to be discussed.
Yep.
I think we can start closing it out though.
Oh yeah. Well,
unless you had any closing thoughts.
No,
on this whole...
I gave my closing thoughts earlier, and you pretty much summed up what I was going to say too. So
cool.
What are we working on and how to reach these kids? I am working on something, but I don't know if I'm allowed to talk about it. I'm about to say I don't think I'm working on anything, but I have something due on Sunday.
Perhaps no.
You should. Well, if you follow any of the Discord stuff, you should know. But yeah, no, I've got something in the works that'll probably go live on Monday. And that's it. I don't think I'm doing anything else because I literally did 2 reviews in 2 weeks after doing Elder Scrolls Online for IGN and the crap that took. So I think I'm taking a break.
Well, all right. I reviewed last week. I think it was last week when I went live. I reviewed the Viotech SUW49C. It's a 49-inch 3840 by 1080p monitor. It's a massive it's a huge monitor. It's absurd. Great for productivity, not so much for games. That's on MMORPG.com if you want to read. I reviewed Crash Team Racing that just went live today. Definitely go read. Bradford had a couple of reviews. He talked about Samurai Showdown and Yakuza Judgmental. I think it's actually just called Judgment.
Just Judgment.
But all 3 of those reviews, CTR, Samurai, and Judgment, all on GameSpace.
Yep.
I am also not working on any major review or anything, though I put in a request for Chris for something down the line, but let's see if that happens. Really, again, I just want to plug our stream. This is a genuinely fun stream, guys. If you just want to come hang out and just watch and just be part of the chaos. It's every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern. I stream to my Twitch and YouTube. That is Shank TH Tank on both Twitch and YouTube. And I also stream to my Mixer and Periscope. That's Shank the Tank, fully spelled out, for Mixer and Periscope. Saturday nights at 11. Bradford, you stream this to your Facebook?
Yes? Yeah, which right now it's not working. It for some reason Restream doesn't recognize the page I want to stream it to. But I'll just stream it directly to Facebook next time. So it'll be on. If you're friends with me on Facebook, you actually already follow the page. So
there you go.
I don't have a name for it yet. It's literally called Joseph Bradford Page.
Wow.
Because I already have pages made for myself, and for some reason didn't just use that one.
Well, all right. So Bradford will be streaming there. Brian, I don't think he's gonna be able to join us this week, but he will basically be streaming to his Twitter, which is Brian the Witcher, on Twitch. So yeah, honestly, it's a lot of fun. I'm very happy that we decided to actually do this. I loving the game so much. There's a wealth of content, especially Bradford, as you talked about earlier. They really dug in and changed a bunch and made really lived up to that single player promise that they made. So that's what's going to be on our pipeline for Saturday. So that's this Saturday, 11 p.m. Eastern. Oh yeah, how can they reach us, Bradford?
They can reach us on Twitter at GTI Podcast. They can follow Brian at Silent. Note that is the key word in Brian's name, Silent Theory 007. You can follow myself at LOTR Lore. You can follow Shank at Shank the Tank.
Yes, you can visit us at gamingtheindustry.com for an RSS feed of the show. We're on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, Zune, Groove, whatever. I'm just making up words. Search for
We
Gaming
might
the
still
Industry.
be on Zune or whatever that
Wow.
marketplace is called now.
I don't think it's Groove. I think it's Xbox Music. I don't know what the hell Microsoft is doing, but
Whatever
whatever.
it's called now, it's still on it. The feed is still
Yeah.
going there.
So just search for Gaming the Industry. Join us every Wednesday night at 10 p.m. Eastern for new episodes on my Twitch, YouTube, Mixer, and Periscope channels. And Bradford is actually streaming this as well to your Facebook channel.
Yep.
Okay, Facebook channel. So yeah, you can watch it on there as well. The video on demand versions will usually be on my YouTube channel. That is youtube.com/shank TH-tank. Check out the Gaming the Industry playlist there. That's it for tonight's show, everybody. Thank you very much for joining. Heavy topics, but absolutely worth discussing them. And let's say our goodbyes.
Peace out.
Peace out, people. Hope to see you on Saturday at 11 p.m. Eastern. All right.